Welcome one and all. It's time for a battle report in the old world. What is this, 2015? It's Andy and Rem here with Old World Battle Report, Dwarves versus Wood Elves. And I'm joined by Mr. Remington, who should be seated here. Hello.
Hello, how you doing? You can't see me, but hopefully you can hear me.
They can certainly hear you, and as I remove the episode thumbnail here, they'll see this wacky image of us with the old world rulebook confirming that this game did indeed take place. Now, when Warhammer exploded all those years ago, did you ever think we'd reach this point ever again? Getting all those square bases out on the table and pushing them around again?
I did not think that, Andy. I have to be truthful. I didn't think that.
Well, GW have proved you wrong then, haven't they?
Yeah, they did. Backed by popular demand, I think. I think people are loving it, and it's great to get back to the old world.
It sure is. So, we decided that we'd start off keeping it fairly simple, because this is the first time either of us have played the game outside of a very small demo game that I had where I was defeated by two small children. So, we've gone for 1,500 points, and it should be pointed out actually before that we had an even smaller game of just a couple of units, just push them into each other, just to get us familiar with the combat mechanics. So, there was a slight precursor of a game, but this is the 1,500 points, Wood Elves versus Dwarves. Minimal magic items and runes, so not a lot of those, and we tried to take a bit of a mixture of units. So, let's go to the next image. And there is the battlefield. So, I've got the old classic green Citadel mat where it belongs on the table with old world miniatures on it. I didn't think this bad boy was ever going to get rolled out ever again. But here we are. And for your Wood Elves, we can see over there, a nice variety of units. You've got a few cavalry units, some shooter units, and some fighter units. So, do you want to describe what's in your list? What kind of role those units may have played in past editions?
Oosh. Well, okay, I'll do my very best. Well, your arrow is starting off at the Glade Riders, and we're playing a 1,500 point game, and I managed to field all my Glade Riders, so that 8 of them there, and I just kitted these out without a standard or any sort of champion or musician, and these are just there to hassle you, Andy, and hassle you they will with bows. With Azrai bows, which have a -1 armor save. That's special about the Azrai bows. But also, I've given these Glade Riders magical arrows, and there's a variety to choose from. And the one I chose were True Flight arrows, which means I can shoot you even if I can shoot you without any penalties, basically. And that means I can ignore sort of cover when I'm shooting you, and if you charge me and I do a stand and shoot, I won't be penalised.
Very handy. Also, running around moving without taking penalty for shooting, very handy for a cavalry unit like that.
Yeah, so they're called fast cavalry, I think we call them in the game. They also have the open order, so they're kind of like, well, the skirmishers. They have swift stride and fire and flee. So, yeah, very, very handy, fast moving, not very well armored, I have to say. But, you know,
Very evasive.
not many elves are. Yeah, not many elves are, to be honest. And I don't think you've taken them very seriously because you've only put a unit of 5 Iron Drakes there to sort of counter them. Perhaps you're thinking you could just mow them down with your organ gun. But
maybe.
Yeah, the next unit.
Yeah, what have you got around the woods here?
Okay, so in the woods, it looks like I put my big unit of Eternal Guard there. Full command. Those ones do not have shields, so I didn't pay the extra point to equip them with shields. So that's my kind of anvil unit, if you like. Decent when they're being charged. The second row can also fight. I can't remember if you call that martial prowess. I think that's certainly if you charge them from the rear or the sides. The Eternal Guard have that. But yeah, that's my biggest unit, you could say. In the forest itself is a unit of 7 Way Watchers.
Should we also point out at this stage that I trusted you to set up some terrain on the table and thought, wait a minute, this looks a little populated with difficult terrain here. Let me have a look at those Wood Elf special rules. What's this? They all ignore the terrain? Well, that's very convenient, isn't it, Mr. Remington?
Well, I did get a free wood to plant down at the end once all the terrain had been put down. So I did bring my own wood, mobile wood, and stuck it right there. So basically, you couldn't shoot me with your arsenal there. Also, hiding in that forest is my Glade Lord, and yeah, he's equipped with the Spear of Twilight, which is fantastic in combat because it has heroic killing blow. And I thought that could be really useful if I get into some bother with any of your lords. So that's the Spear of Twilight. He also has the Talisman of Protection, which grants a 5-up ward save. He's got Arcane Bodkins, which is a -2 to your armor save. Very handy against dwarves because they're often well armored, and it's hard enough to wound them with their high toughness. So I thought if I get the wound, I really want to get through his armor as well.
Who have we got up on the hill here?
Up on the hill we have basically 10 Glade Guard. They don't have any armor, they don't have any command, but they do have 32-inch range. So yeah, I was thinking of just taking pot shots and whittling down your dwarves, and being as I'm on a hill, it means the second row can also fire.
Well, it also means that you can fire over your own troops as well, or over my troops if they're blocking the path to another unit.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the way that shooting units work has changed a little bit. So right now it's the front rank, and then is it half of the second rank, or if you're on a hill, or do you have to have a special rule to get half of the second rank to fire, or is that just a standard?
I'm not sure. Just anyone listening, we're bound to get a few rules wrong. So appreciate.
We've only played the one game, and then we've gone through the rulebook afterwards and thought, oh yes, that's how that bit was supposed to work. So if there's anything we realised that was hideously wrong, we're going to tell you in this video. But being on a hill does let you fire with additional ranks as well.
Yeah, I don't know whether you call that open order, but they have the special rule. Elven Reflexes gives a +1 to initiative. When they're in combat, they have move through cover and open order. So, hopefully, open order means the second rank can fire.
Open order is to do with the formation. So if you closed order, it means you're all bunched together, ready to fight, and you get +1 on your combat resolution.
I see.
We've got Stu Gibson in the chat there. Good
evening. So why would you want to be open order then?
There are some benefits to being open order as well. And in fact, let me pull up a unit to give you an example here. So because we're using the Old World Builder app, which has got some very handy stuff in there. So,
brilliant.
Let's have a look. A unit in open order. I'm having a look right here. So it's different from just being skirmishers. Key difference is in how the unit moves and interacts with terrain. Unit in open order consists of 2 or more models that are in base contact with each other, blah 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 blah. Right, let's have a look. Unit shape, open order. Open order. Yeah, it's like menus that you'll then hit the rule and it'll take you into the next one.
I don't think we need to worry about that right now anyway.
I don't think we do, because it's going to take too long to go through all this. But close order is generally what you want to be for fighting, and then you can also be in a marching column if you want to go faster but not be as good at fighting.
Yeah. Well, I'll finish off my list. You've got 10 Glade Guard on the hill. Then at the bottom of the hill, we've got 10 Eternal Guard, full command. That means standard bearer, champion, and musician. And these guys have shields, so a little bit more protection there for these guys. I do love my Eternal Guard models, so I thought, yeah, get them all out. And I did think shooting alone would not be enough to stop the dwarves, so I was hoping to get a unit or two in combat with them and maybe get some side flank charges with the next unit next to them, which is my 5 Wild Riders, full command. And unfortunately, I didn't have enough points to equip them with any magical items. I would have loved to. Maybe next time. But yeah, they've got 5 Wild Riders, fantastic on the charge. Because they have their hunting spears, which gives them, I think when they charge, they get an extra strength on that charge. It's called Furious Charge as well.
And they're quite likely to charge because they are very fast, aren't they?
Yeah, and they've got Frenzy and Furious Charge, which I think basically means they get +1 attack for the Frenzy, but they kind of have to charge if there's an enemy unit available to charge. Right?
Yes, so they can be easily baited then.
Yeah, but they also have Swift Stride. They've got Talismanic Tattoos, which gives them a 6-up ward save. I've given them shields. If I'm not mistaken, because they're mounted, they get a save and they get shields. So that's a 5-up save, and then they've got the 6-up tattoo save. But quite an expensive unit, and only 1 wound each. So, you know, I do want them to survive more than 1 round of charging for sure. So next to them, just behind the tree there on the top left of your picture, I think I've got 9 War Dancers. And I didn't give them the additional hand weapon. Kind of wish I had, but I gave them the throwing spears. So if they charge into combat, they get to chuck their spears at the enemy as they're rushing in. So yeah, War Dancers, very interesting unit. And leading those War Dancers is a War Dancer special hero. You can hear me rustling through my my notes here. And
You,
that's a
with
shadow,
notes.
a Shadow Dancer. Check this out. Weapon skill 8 for the Shadow Dancer. And he is a level 1 wizard. He has the Spear of Loek. And he also has Illusion. So I believe I rolled on the magic table. And the spell that I got, I went for the basic spell, which is Wicked.
Yeah, you
Gives
didn't
them-
like particularly the spell that you rolled, so you just used the default spell.
Yeah. The default spell with Illusion basically gives the character and any unit he joins a 5-up ward save. Thought that could be useful, being as how the War Dancers only have tattoo save because they're pretty much. And that's it for my army. That's just about 1,500 points there. So yeah, all the archers have magic arrows, mainly arcane bodkins, apart from the Glade Riders who have the one that ignores cover.
Now, an interesting thing about magical attacks in this game is that if you have magical or flaming attacks, then often they will actually have more effect against certain units, but less effect against others. So, for example, if we start down here with Iron Drakes, using flaming attacks against them, you're just going to give them a ward save, because they're built for this, because that's all they do. They just spend all day flaming away. Now, we've got these 5 Iron Drakes down here, and there's a full command in there. Controversial choice, because if there's only 5 in the units, they're probably going to get killed quite easily. But they're very expensive, and looking at some of the other stuff I wanted to squeeze into the list, couldn't really justify a bigger unit than that. But what's special about the Iron Drakes? Well, they've not got particularly long range. They've only got an 18-inch range, the old Iron Drakes. But they do pack quite a punch with their special Drake guns, which have an AP of -1, so reducing saves immediately, but also Armor Bane. So Armor Bane is something that's been added to the old world. It wasn't in the old editions. So this gives you additional AP if you roll a 6 to wound. And with these guys, it's Armor Bane 2. So if they roll 6 to wound, they'll go up to AP 3, which is quite significant for anyone who's got armor.
True. Also, because of the strength of those Drake guns, I think you only need 2 to
Yes,
wound an
strength
elf.
5, and pretty much everything in the Wood Elf force is going to be toughness 3, isn't it? So
Yeah.
wounding on 2 is very,
So
very handy. And speaking of things that are going to wound Wood Elves easily, on the hill we've got the Organ Gun. Now, the Organ Gun went through quite a lot of changes over the editions, but it's most similar to the 8th edition Organ Gun in that you roll the 2 dice. If you roll... that's how many shots you're going to have. If you roll 1 misfire, then you don't have to roll on the table to see if it blows up, which makes it more reliable than, let's say, a cannon. You just get -1 to hit if you have the 1 misfire. You only roll on the black powder misfire table if you roll 2 misfires, which is fairly unlikely. So, quite reliable black powder weapon. And it is powerful though, and you can get obviously upwards of like 12, 14, 16, 18, or even 20 shots if you're lucky. And it's got a good range of 30 inches. So, on a hill, obviously, we can see over things and pick out the juiciest targets. And it's quite resistant to return fire, because when you shoot at it, you're going to use the toughness of the war machine itself, which I think is 7. And you only get to fight the crew when you actually get into combat. You can see at the base of the hill there, it's guarded by the legendary slayer Alric Big Butts, with his extra large green stuff sculpted behind. And he's an impressive little fella, and I'll tell you exactly what he is in this list. He's a dragon slayer, and what's special about them, obviously immune to psychology, all the kind of standard things you'd expect from a slayer, unbreakable obviously, but there's also killing blow, which means that if you roll a 6 when rolling to wound, then you just kill whatever it was you hit, if it's of a certain type. So in this case, it's if it's an infantry or a cavalry model. So that is perfect for taking out enemy heroes, this Dragon Slayer, as long as it doesn't obviously get shot on the way in. But it's fairly resistant to that as well, because it does have a toughness of 5, which is quite impressive.
But only 2 wounds, right?
Yes. So if you've been used to playing Age of Sigmar, then obviously you'll be used to things having a lot of wounds, and wounds being very easily dished out. You'll see big, like 36 wound models, because obviously your toughness doesn't really affect anything in Age of Sigmar. You don't really have a toughness as such. The opponent just hits and wounds on a set roll. In this game, obviously, we're back the old style of opposing stats. So you're looking at the strength versus the toughness. So you don't need a billion wounds to be survivable in this game. You just need high toughness, and good armor is obviously helpful as well. Next, we've got 3 blocks of troops here. We've got dwarf warriors with hand weapons and shields. We have got 15 hammerers, and we've got, I think it's 18 iron breakers, because there's a couple of heroes in that unit as well. So, iron breakers have always been one of my favourite units. They're very, very cool. Dwarf warriors are kind of like a poor man's version of the iron breakers with the shields there, pretty tough. And then the hammerers, not as well armoured, despite what it may look like on the models, but they do hit very hard indeed. They've got good weapon skill and good strength with the hammers. And what's interesting about some of these units like hammerers now is that in the old edition, if you had a big two-handed weapon, you would always strike last. That is no longer the case in this game. All it does is reduce your initiative. There are lots of things going on that can increase or reduce your initiative in combat. So, for example, if you're charging over a reasonable distance, then you're going to increase your initiative. And certain units have rules where if they get charged, for example, they get a bonus to their initiative, or if they charge, maybe, or other circumstances. So, occasionally, you may well see these two-handed weapon units striking first, which would be interesting. Maybe not in this matchup against Wood Elves, who are obviously going to have very high, pointy-eared elven initiative. But in this unit of Iron Breakers, we've got let's have a pull up my list here. We've got the King on an Oathstone, with full plate armour, shield, so very, very tough and survivable. The Oathstone has a couple of uses, actually. The Oathstone means that you can't refuse a challenge from this character. It has to be accepted. And also, they can't, let's see, yeah, they automatically pass panic tests. It also means they can't flee from charges, though, the Oathstone, because obviously you don't want to leave that thing behind. It's got ancestral oaths carved into it, I imagine, so you can't just abandon that on the battlefield. And that's the King. The Runesmith as an interesting role as well. Because, let me just tell you what this is called. This Rune Law ability. So that can dispel enemy spells, which is obviously very handy. And he's got something else called Forge Fire as well. So any unit that this character joins will gain Armor Bane 2 and Flaming Attack special rule. So that actually makes a fighting unit even more potent just by the Runesmith being in there. So I think that's a good little role for him to play. And maybe this is a bit overkill for a Death Star unit with all those Iron Breakers who are expensive and 2 heroes as well, against Wood Elves who are mostly going to be able to dictate who they fight. So that's probably not the best choice to put them all piled into one unit. Maybe it would have been better off putting something in with the Dwarf Warriors as well.
I have to admit, Andy, when I saw that Death Star unit of your Iron Breakers, I thought, I'm not even touching them because they're not going to run away, even if I kill a few of them, because of they've got your general's leadership to go on and the Oathstone and whatnot. So I thought, well, what's the disadvantage? Well, they're going to be slow, so just keep clear of them, whatever you do, and try and pick off your smaller units.
Yes.
So
now, the Hammer is obviously the hard-hitting unit there. Over on the left, we've got the Gyrocopter, who is highly rated in this edition by all the people who've probably played a few games with them already. People buying their Gyrocopter fleets and just sending dozens of them out onto the table. But I've only got the one for now. And obviously it's fast, it's got a gun, but it's not particularly survivable. But it is only 60 points. So very, very efficient unit, I would say there. Then we've got some Rangers. You might see that they're a bit close to the enemy. That's because they can deploy further forward, and they are skirmishers as well. Despite the fact I've got them on a tray for convenience, they are a skirmishing unit, so they don't have ranks. And the interesting thing about Rangers is that they are a troop. In the list building phase, they are a core unit. So that's going to, where you would normally have to pay kind of a tax with weak units for your core, Rangers are actually pretty tasty, and you can kit them out with great weapons and crossbows and heavy armour and full command.
Andy, can I just ask, what made you put them so far forward with no sort of backup? Well, you got the Gyrocopter kind of coptering closest to them once it moves. But
well, I'll give you a bit of insight into my strategy now, because obviously we can't be deeply strategic in this game because we haven't really played before, so we don't know how things are going to perform and how things are going to work. The certain things that have changed in this old world compared to previous editions of Warhammer, and one of the things that's changed a lot is post-combat, how easy or difficult it is to break units and what happens to them after combat. There's a lot of manoeuvring that goes on after combat now. So we're just going to see how it goes, but as a general strategy, what I'm going for here, the Rangers are right up there. They want to tempt this cavalry unit into a charge, because my thinking is that they are certainly not going to kill enough of them to stop me hitting back. And these Rangers with their great weapons are going to whomp at least some of those cavalry. So the cavalry may well win the first round, but there's only 5 of them, I think. So I think the Rangers are going to win that fight overall, which could mean that both units... Are these both War Dancers, or is one of them Eternal Guard?
Eternal Guard on the right with the standard, and War Dancers on the top left. But also don't forget you will have a stand and shoot with your Rangers, because they've got crossbows, haven't they?
Yes, so there's also that. Now, what I want to happen is for that combat obviously to go well, and then the War Dancers and the Eternal Guard to be diverted into this area. The Gyrocopter can then start flapping around, dropping its template with its steam gun on them, maybe flying over them, dropping bombs. So these 2 units are trying to tie up this whole flank, while the rest of the army marches very slowly forwards, with the Hammerers slightly further back, so maybe they don't get charged by any of this lot. I want them to charge these very tough units here. And then I'm leaving this flank alone, because anything that walks in here is going to get gunned down, in my opinion, by the Organ Gun and the Iron Drakes. So just push into the centre, hold this side with guns, hold this side with these harassment units. That's my plan. What's your plan, Mr. Rem?
Nice. Well, what I love about the old world is that we don't yet have scenarios and objectives to hold as you do in Age of Sigmar and 40k. So this means I don't have to worry about getting objectives and rushing troops forward and seizing territory. because obviously with Andy's big Death Star units, if he got on any of those, I'd be in big trouble and be losing victory points every turn. So I thought, look, stay right back. Let's get a couple of rounds of shooting him, whittle Andy down, stay out of the range of the Orkan gun best I can. And when I saw the Rangers out in the open like that, I thought I can't resist getting in a charge. But I do have the backup of the Eternal Guard and the fast-moving War Dancers as a kind of a backup there. So I thought surely those 3 units are going to be able to take on the Gyrocopter and some smelly, beardy Rangers.
Well, we shall see. Now, let's have a look at some close-ups. Now, they're not done that much justice because I'm using the flash on my phone camera for these images. I would like to set up some better lighting for the next game, but you can see the well-illuminated paint jobs on Mr. Remington's Wood Elves here. And one thing I will say is that there's a lot of black visible on your trees, which, as we know, is unacceptable. You're going to have to get that sorted out.
Yeah, that's being sorted out. I've ordered a bunch of those dark wood thematic Wood Elf trays that should fit 25 millimeters. So, these elves are in a they are being transformed into the old world as we speak.
And my army here, the goblin green bases with this flash on, they do not look this crazy in natural lighting. It's very, very vibrant. So you can see the butt cheeks there, the legendary Dragon Slayer. And there we go. And moving into the roll to see who's going first. Now, you chose to fire off a Wood Elf arrow before the game, didn't you? Which gave you -1 for the first turn roll. Is that correct?
Yeah, this is called the Arrow of Kurnos. So this is a Wood Elf special rule. And after deployment and before the battle starts, the Wood Elf player who has a general that can shoot off a single arrow to goad the enemy, and they shoot it at the enemy general, and it's shot at the general's bow skill, which is really high, but it's only a strength 3 hit, so it's just a sort of to goad you into attacking. But nothing came of it, but it meant that my it's -1 on my roll to see who goes first.
But it didn't matter because you won the roll anyway.
I won the roll anyway, yeah.
And you will also see here that the Slayer has moved up before the game. That's because he has the Vanguard rule. So he can make a move. And he may have gone too far actually here, because I'm just reading here that it says it cannot march.
Right.
So maybe I've sent him too far out.
He's a bit of a nutter, isn't he? I mean, he definitely going to get shot.
He's running out essentially naked, only with his beard draped over his sensitive areas.
I kind of think the way your list is done, you were expecting some tree folk, weren't you, to get them with your flaming attacks, and maybe, get the Demon Slayer in against some big monster tree.
Well, that would have been nice if you'd brought a tree man. Now, you've pushed up a little bit here in the first turn. Nothing too wild, but you've got a bit of an advance on. And then you've charged straight into the Rangers.
Oh, I couldn't resist it, Andy. I just couldn't resist. It was like you got movement 9, I think, with those wild riders. Actually, it might even be something like movement 10. No, movement 9 with the Steed of Kurnos. So a big charge distance as well. So I thought, let's not even give you a round to shoot. And I did watch another battle report where a Wood Elf player did exactly this same thing to some dwarves on a hill and lost 3 wild riders as they were charging in. But I thought, doesn't mean it's going to happen again necessarily. So in went the charge, and Andy obviously tried to stand and shoot.
Yeah, it didn't kill any of them, unfortunately.
Now, with your dwarf forged weapons, I think it's called, something like that, it means you don't suffer the -1 penalty on a stand and shoot. And you still missed all of them. Couldn't believe
Yes,
it.
which is it's very nice to give dwarves even more reason to stand still and invite the enemy forward, because that's definitely what dwarves need.
So definitely luck was in my favour there. I don't know if both your ranks fired, but at least one rank fired. And
They're skirmishers, so they don't really have a rank.
right, so they must have all shot, and you missed or didn't wound, or maybe I saved a couple. I don't know. In any case, the Wild Riders got in, and yeah, hopefully, if I roll well, that charge could be devastating.
Oh well.
Meanwhile, Glade Riders came down off a hill, and I thought this is a good chance to test my bow skill. I don't think all of them were in line of sight of your Dwarf Slayer, so I might have gone for the Iron Drakes. Can't remember.
Yeah, it doesn't look like you've killed any, but it does
No,
look like
no.
you've shot off one dwarf warrior with a different unit, which I
Yeah,
assume
that
is
would've-
someone in the woods.
Yeah, it would have been the Way Watchers in the woods. Yeah, obviously with the Azrai longbows giving you -1 to your armor save, and those dwarf warriors only having a 4-up, I did manage to kill one, which was quite encouraging, to be fair.
Okay, now speaking of encouraging, this combat, I think this has pretty much gone to plan for both of us, because you steam in there, you just wipe out 4 rangers, but then when they strike back, they kill 2 of yours.
Yeah, well, in hindsight, maybe I should have done a challenge against your champion who has 2 attacks. So I'm sure your champion, they would have took 4 off the front rank, meaning you'd only be able to fight with 2. And one of them being the champion, that meant you had 2 attacks, and that's 3. And with your great weapons, yeah, that did sunder 2 of my Wild Riders. But there you go. Anyway, good day, Stu Gibson. Good day, Gillian80. But yeah, 2 Wild Riders down, gutted. But it looks like I may have won that combat.
You've certainly won the combat, so let's have a look. Oh, you can actually see down here that I've got my golden combat resolution counter out, which obviously hasn't been used for quite a while. But what's this? Leadership test. Roll of 11.
You rolled 11, but also the war dancers were coming in to get a charge flank should the combat last another turn. You rolled leadership. I was all day long. I thought Andy's going to roll within his leadership. I've never seen him fail a leadership test until today.
And there we go. Leadership of 11 rolled there, which is obviously higher than their leadership.
Yeah,
and there are ways. Dwarves do have very high leadership. I think they all have pretty much 9 or 10. But there are ways you can mitigate this kind of thing happening. Certain units, you can take an upgrade on them, which allows them to re-roll their leadership. And you can also put them in range of generals as well, to use the general's leadership. But in this case, it wouldn't have mattered anyway, because they rolled 11. So, what happens when dwarves flee? They don't flee very far. No, they fled 2 inches.
Oh no. And not good against Wild Rider cavalries with steeds of Kurnos.
No, so obviously they get run down, trampled, and the rangers are toast.
And that was obviously a great source of satisfaction to myself, because like I said, a previous battle report I watched, I saw the rangers they had less rangers than you had, Andy. And they were devastating. So I thought, just because you see one game result in something doesn't mean it's necessarily going to happen again in this game. So you shouldn't be too prejudiced. So yeah, the Wild Riders won out then, and that sort of cleared that left flank as you see it. However, I did now expect the gyrocopter to come in, all guns blazing, and perhaps finish off those Wild Riders or make them break.
Well, let's find out, shall we? Because we're now into my turn. And you'll see here that the Iron Drakes have unloaded their shots into this unit of cavalry. And how many have they killed there? Were there 8 in there to begin with?
There was 8, so you got 2 of them. They're just, vulnerable to fire. And perhaps I didn't keep them back far enough from your Drake guns. But yeah, you said 18-inch, but, it was in range.
Now, what's the magnificent, super powerful organ gun going to do?
Oh, Christ.
Well, it's going to wipe out most of a unit of archers on a hill. How about that?
It did. I mean, luckily, I think I I rolled within my leadership to keep them there.
Yes, they managed to not run away, which is nice for them. I don't know actually whether they needed to take a test at this point. I don't think they've been reduced to low enough numbers to force a test or not here.
Right. Well, they lost half their unit there. There was 10 of them.
And over on the left, you can see the gyrocopter. Actually, the flash on the camera actually brings out the highlighting on the gyrocopter wings quite nicely. But the flame template there, the breath weapon template for the steam gun, dropped down onto the cavalry, but didn't kill any of them.
Yeah, that was quite strange, Andy. Why is that? Is it just better if you've got,
Well, template weapons have changed a bit, so that if you're not covering the entire model, it's not quite as powerful.
Right.
On large models like this, they have a chance to not even hit. So really, it would be better going after something like War Dancers, where you can fit more of them under the template comfortably.
Yeah. Could you have done that?
I think I possibly could have flown to here and then blasted the War Dancers a bit, but it wouldn't have killed enough of them, and then they would have charged and killed it, certainly. And I wanted to get rid of this unit.
Yeah. I have to remember, I did successfully cast my illusion spell to give them a 5-up ward anyway.
Yes. Now there's the overview. You can see I've pushed everything up as fast as those little dwarf legs will go, which isn't very fast at all. I did think about diverting my Death Star of Iron Breakers and the Hammerers over this way to actually do some fighting against this lot. But I thought, you know what, the Hammerers are already kind of looking that way as it is, so I'm cool with that, and I'm going to flame these guys anyway, but then that failed horribly. So I'm not too concerned if they want to charge the Hammerers, though, because they are a very tough unit. Now, one thing we haven't done in this game particularly is redress the ranks, or do any kind of ranking other than just the standard 5 on the dwarves. Now, there's no reason that you have to stick to 5 wide units, particularly when it's a powerful fighting unit that generally only has 1 attack. But I think the Hammerers get an extra attack under some circumstances, but the wider the unit is, the more you're going to be hitting back with if you're getting charged, for instance. But obviously you're lowering your rank bonus by doing that. So there's a balance to be struck, but there's nothing tying you to being 5 wide, so it's something to experiment with.
Yeah. So if you're enjoying this content, please quickly hit the like, maybe subscribe to Andy2D6, where you'll see myself and Andy delve into more old world Age of Sigmar material. And of course, Andy is a champion at Kings of War and puts out a lot of content with that as well as other stuff. So
that is
hit
true.
That like button.
And there's also a link in the description to Mr. Remington's channel where you can see his yearly video if you're lucky.
Yeah, I need to. Yeah. Anyway.
Yes, you should upload something. Do another Remington's Pillow Talk. People seem to like that.
They did.
Now on to the next Wood Elf turn, and the gyrocopter is in a sandwich, which you might think is going to get it killed horribly, but I'm actually, when I was looking at the stats for the gyrocopter, I thought, you know what? It might actually live.
Yeah, I imagine you've got good toughness.
It's quite tough, it's got decent armour, wounds. And some of these Wood Elf, the War Dancers, they don't hit that hard. They've got attacks, but they've a decent number of attacks, but they don't have high strength. So it's going to be tricky to wound this thing.
I was pretty confident I could kill it, Andy, but I thought that you would do something like a stand and shoot or a fire and flee if you had that rule.
Well, you can't stand and shoot with a breath weapon.
Right.
And that's its gun.
Oh, don't you have like a rattling gun or clatter gun or something like
You can choose to take different guns. But the reason I didn't try to flee is because of the distance involved. And if I flee and get caught, I just die immediately. So this cavalry unit here, so close, I think fleeing isn't going to take me far enough. That was my thinking on that. Now onto the centre, you've pushed up a little bit, but not hugely far. Obviously you don't want to engage with my Death Star.
Yeah, I've just looked up fire and flee, and I think you only roll a d6 when you do the actual flee after the firing, so that probably wouldn't be enough to get away from my Wild Rider.
Yes. Now, you're mostly staying back and shooting here. Not that you have a huge shooting supremacy, but you do have a huge speed advantage.
I did bring out the Eternal Guards out of the woods, and it looks like I've lost a man out of the front rank, but I didn't really. It's just that they fell off the movement tray because they were so heavy old school metal Eternal Guard, and I broke the standard bearer. But until Andy gave me some handy super glue, yeah, I was one man down from the front.
Now,
You can't. Yeah,
what's interesting about this situation is that you are near this wall. If the dwarves charge you and finish their charge on the wall, then they lose their rank bonus. So behind a wall is a very interesting place to take up a defense. If a unit finishes its charge on a wall, they can say goodbye to the rank bonus.
yeah, and I'm heavily outnumbered there, as you can see. But I do have my general lurking in the wood still, and he's got pretty tasty magic weapon in there. So, and also the Glade Guard, hiding in. The Eternal Guard hiding in the forest. So I think at this point, Andy, if I'm looking at the picture correctly, I went up on the hill, with my Glade Riders, and took some pot shots at your Iron Drakes, and it looks like I managed to kill one of them.
Yes, you have taken out one of them, and we've got someone else in the chat there. Good evening, Visibly Riley.
Yeah, hey man. I've moved my Way Watchers out of the woods. They can't all see the units that you can see, like the Demon Slayer. So not all of them could shoot. So I can't remember if I probably fluffed the shooting with those.
I think you did shoot at the Slayer, but you didn't do any wounds.
Yeah.
You needed 6 to wound with his high toughness.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say I was unlucky with the shooting, but I thought as long as I keep getting rounds of shooting in, I will get results. Even if for the first couple of rounds it was in effect.
Your other shooting unit from the hill and in the woods there, they managed to put a wound onto the organ gun.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I was hoping to shoot the crew, but you can't do that against a war machine. So it only had 3 wounds. So I thought if I could take that out, it would really nullify you. And also, if I could take out the Iron Drakes, then I really would be able to just circle round the dwarves, and it'd be like shooting fish in a barrel.
Well, what's this? The gyrocopter survives, loses the combat from combat resolution, and rolls a 10 on the leadership test.
Oh no, so there's no casualties, but because of all the sort of the people I've got in there and the standards, it was just the combat resolution was just too much in the Wood Elf favour there. So
yeah, but even then I was hoping to just fall back in good order, which would have meant that the gyrocopter was tying up both of these units, which allows me to march forward with my Death Star and my hammerers. But another failed leadership test on this flank. This dwarven leadership isn't all it's cracked up to be if you can roll well. So maybe it's these old world dice rolling too well. That's the problem.
So if I'm looking at it correctly, the War Dancers have the larger unit, which means you would have, gone, turned around and ran away from them. Either way, it took you off the board and out the game. I don't know if you call it redressing the ranks or what, but I used my remaining movement or post-charge victory
now
to turn around and face you.
Interesting comment there. Wouldn't fall back in good order still take you off the table with 2 inches? I don't think so. I think it would have had just enough space to do that. And I haven't looked into it sufficiently to know whether going off the table with fall back in good order actually kills you or whether you just stop there. Because you do stop short of other things. So I'll have to look into that. But I think there was enough space anyway. Right. But because the unit is outnumbered in unit strength, then any kind of fleeing is still, what would you even call it? Breaking. Yeah, because it is a break test, isn't it? So you still break rather than falling. Yeah, I think it's instead of falling back in good order. Or is it you fall back in good order instead of give ground? Either way, if you're out unit
think
strength, if you're horribly
if you're off
outnumbered,
the table, you're gone.
then it makes the result of the test worse than what it usually is. Because if you pass the test, but you've still lost the combat, then you just give ground. And that's the 2-inch one. The fall back in good order, I think, is the D6 move. And breaking, obviously, is fleeing, 2d6. -1 if you're a dwarf, obviously, because they like to be caught and mowed down. Which is more to do with just their legs being short. So yeah, outnumber a unit, then it's more likely to run away. But obviously it's gone. And
Accolades up the left side enables me to turn around and now pose a threat on the flanks for Andy.
yes, so my 2 flank units have horribly failed, so we're going to have to start diverting forces over there. The hammerers are going to have to face in that direction now. And they were supposed to be more of a backup unit, so when the combats were raging here and here, the hammerers could pick and choose which side needed their punch to join in and turn the tide. But they're kind of regretting not being in the middle now. Because if I, for example, turned the iron breakers this way, that's much more of a tough nut to crack than hammerers.
True, but I was very conscious of the fact that your hammerers, when they're charged, they have 2 attacks with their deadly double-handed hammers. So
Yes.
Any kind of hit back against me would just definitely take me out unless I could take off a full rank.
Now, I'll tell you what I should have done in a moment as well. So, these hammerers who are about to turn round should, at this point, knowing they're about to be charged, consider redressing the ranks. Because that means there's going to be more models in the fighting rank, which is the front rank, and that means I would be able to hit back with more of them.
So it's your turn now, is it, Andy? Yeah? It's
yes,
your turn.
as they are now, they're obviously sitting on a rank bonus, but as soon as they lose 1 model, then that rank's gone. So they might as well have maybe put gone 1 more model wide, and there would have still been a couple of units casualties before any rank bonus was lost, and they would have been able to hit back with more power. So it's something to consider if you're about to be charged. How many ranks do you want to be in? Do you want the rank bonus, or do you want more models hitting back? Based on the unit, that's going to be different, and based on what's going to hit you as well. So something to consider. The Slayer has moved up, getting closer before trying to charge the enemy because he's so slow. The Iron Drakes fire off some shots, and I think they kill another one of this unit. You can see one of them's missing there. So they kill another one there. The Organ Gun fires again and kills 3 Eternal Guard out of the woods. And so far the Organ Gun has had 14 and 16 shots, I think. So it's rolling well on the artillery dice, which is nice.
Yep.
And the -1 to hit from rolling a misfire doesn't sound like much, but actually a lot of the time you're going to be at long range. And the crew's ballistic skill isn't as high as, let's say, an Iron Drake. The Iron Drakes are sitting pretty with ballistic skill 4, whereas the War Machine crew, I believe, are ballistic skill 3. I'll just confirm that for you now.
Yeah, they are.
Yes, they certainly are.
So you'll be looking at 5s to hit, 6 to hit.
Yes.
Something like that.
So you really don't want to have that misfire, but they haven't had it yet. And the hammerers have turned round so that neither the Eternal Guard there or the cavalry are in the flank. So this is obviously from all my years of playing Kings of War, knowing you don't want to give up a flank to the enemy. That's still relevant in this game. It works a bit differently, but know your angles, position a unit so that no one's in the flank, and the Ironbreakers push up because they're confident that this cavalry unit isn't going to reach it to get to the flank, and they are not scared of this unit here whatsoever. In fact, they would invite a charge in the front or the flank here because it would get them involved in the game, and they are the Death Star.
Yeah, I seriously didn't want to engage them in combat unless it was from all 3 sides.
Yes.
So what I did is ignore the Ironbreakers and rush through the forest with my Eternal Guard. I didn't want the Wild Riders to charge in on their own. I couldn't get into your flank because you turned me. So I put the Wild Riders in the front and the Eternal Guard charging through. Now, Eternal Guard on the charge don't get the second rank bonus where they can fight. So the second rank can fight if they are being charged, or So yeah, but I just thought those extra hits could be handy dandy.
Yes, and if you don't kill enough hammerers here, for every one you don't kill, because they've just been charged, that's an extra attack coming back at you.
Yeah.
So
Especially if your champion in the unit survives, because his 2 attacks always can prove deadly. But you live and learn. I don't think I did that on this.
yeah, you didn't challenge and you didn't direct any attacks onto the champion.
No, but lurking on the side there are my war dancers. So if I can keep this fight going, certainly maybe I can get a charge into your flank with my war dancers. That's the idea.
Yes, and then in the middle you've shot off another dwarf warrior, but that's not really that consequential.
No.
Just weakening them a little bit for the potential fight to come.
That's right.
And look at this. 6 dead hammerers.
Wow, and 2. I'm not sure how you distributed your attacks, but it looks like the Wild Rider's still alive, but 2 Eternal Guard have been felled.
Yes, now I believe we've played this correctly because the champion was still alive. Because you didn't put any attacks on the champion, so you may have cleared out the front rank, but the champion is still there because no attacks were put onto him, so he was able to still attack.
Yeah.
If that's incorrect, I'm sure we'll be flooded with comments letting us know. But he then whomped a couple of the elves there.
Eternal Guard, yeah. So on the surface, it looks like fantastic. I've cleared out almost half the unit on that charge, and I think with the Wild Riders charging in, it ends up being -2 or -3 on your armor, at least a -2 anyway. So it was difficult for you to save any wounds that I got through. Coming in on us with a strength 4 or strength 5 charge, and multiple attacks with those Wild Riders. So on the charge, they are brutal. Coming in with 3 attacks each, plus the stag's attack. That's 4 attacks coming in. That's 12 attacks just there, plus the Eternal Guard. Yeah, I'm surprised I didn't even do better than that. So surely you'd look at that and think, well, you're gonna have to take a leadership there.
Yes, but the Hammerers do have good leadership, and they're not horribly outnumbered, so they should be alright. And they do just fall back in good order in the end, and you decide not to follow after them. What's your thinking there?
Well, the reason why I didn't do that is because why didn't I do that? Well, because I saw how effective the Wild Riders were on the charge, and I thought maybe I'll get to charge you again.
My thinking at this point was these hammerers are actually going to be able to perform a charge now, which means they could get a nice initiative bonus, and wouldn't it be wild if they actually got to strike at first or even simultaneously with the enemy? That would be crazy for a dwarf.
Yeah. I did consider that, but then I thought actually my elves probably got better initiative despite your bonuses on the charge. But this time my back rank will have some attacks coming in at your hammerers. I wasn't too scared of it. Meanwhile, the Iron Drakes wouldn't have been able to get into the fight. And should you get into me with your hammerers, I've got my war dancers lurking on the side there. So I was thinking, maybe I could finish off these hammerers. I don't know. What would you have done if you were me, Andy? Would you have held your ground?
Well, you could have always followed up with just the infantry unit if you wanted to keep the cavalry back to charge later.
Yeah,
and that would have pinned the hammerers in place, so they couldn't then pick and choose which one of your units to go after.
Amazing. Plus, you wouldn't have had 2 attacks each, would you? Because you weren't being charged anymore.
That is correct.
Yeah.
So, as we move on, the Iron Drakes and the Organ Gun start peppering the Wood Elves with shots and almost finish off the unit on the hill, and the others break because there's only 2 left. And because there's not that many models in the unit, they are just going to keep running away now. Off they go. They don't quite reach the edge yet.
That Organ Gun is just on 1 wound left. So I was really hoping to just get the lucky 6 to wound and take you out, but I wasn't able to.
Yes, the Iron Drakes then kill a couple more of these cavalry on the hill, So they're having a nice shooting match, but the Iron Drakes are slowly coming out on top in that. With their superior armour and superior weapon strength, it's a fight that they are enjoying.
I was thinking at this point, Andy, is it pride before valor? Is that even a saying? I thought, come my next turn, I'm just going to keep those Glade Riders alive and get them out of range now.
Yes, to preserve the points. You don't want them to be killed. And you can see that I've pushed the Dwarf Warriors forward, and now they have the advantage of being next to the wall, so anyone that charges them isn't getting a rank bonus. And you can see here that the Ironbreakers have turned to face where all the fighting is now taking place, so that they can actually maybe charge someone next turn. And the Hammerers have chosen to go after the Eternal Guard, thinking, you know what, we could just whack a lot of them.
Oh yeah, big time. I was confident I would get the initiative bonus because I've got Elven Reflexes. I've got initiative 4. Elven Reflexes gives me +1, but also I think the Azrai Spears give me +1 as well. Something like that.
Yes, so it's still very possible that you would go first, I think.
Yeah, or at least at the same time.
And what I was thinking afterwards is that actually I probably should have just charged the cavalry, because I would have finished off the unit, and the Hammerers then would not be blocking the Ironbreakers from getting into combat with anybody.
Right.
So I thought that would have been a better move there.
Yeah,
so let's
the
see what's accomplished.
the Azrai Spear gains a +1 modifier to its initiative against charging units.
Yes, so we've got a challenge going on here as well, with the Hammerers Royal Champion.
Yeah, we sort of forgot about challenges until this point, didn't we?
Yes.
So Elven Reflexes give a +1 to its initiative in the first round of any combat. So that would put me on initiative 6.
Now you can see that a few of them have been killed, and they've then fallen back. And
don't think I managed to kill any of yours that round, did I? No.
I don't think so. So
I held my leadership, fell back.
I think the Hammerers do chase after you, but didn't go very far, actually.
No.
It looks like just an inch.
So I couldn't resist this now, and also Wild Riders, I think they have to charge the nearest unit. So I kind of had to charge into you, suffering from that 2 attacks that you're going to give me.
You can see here the handy-dandy combat resolution counter being used again.
Yeah, it gave me a bit of a quandary because I desperately wanted to get the War Dancers in the combat, but then the Wild Riders would have been in the way. They wouldn't be able to make it, but I think I was also happy I was out of the firing arc of your organ gun. Meanwhile, the at the top of the picture, the mine's gone blank. What they're called? The Way Watchers come out of the forest and looking to get a point-blank shot at that Slayer model who was just butt naked in front of the wall there.
Yes, but they don't kill him.
No. And meanwhile, I might have even gone back into the forest with my big Eternal Guard unit at the top.
Yeah, you have retreated a bit there. Not very eager to face these Dwarf Warriors with their impressive new paint jobs.
No way, but I have put my Glade Lord next to them at the top in the forest to support any combats. So as you can see there, the Wild Riders had to go into the flank of the Hammerers, but just to give me some more impetus there, I put my Eternal Guard out of, away from, I'm going to say away from the Ironbreakers, but look, they're facing them, so certain doom awaits those Eternal Guards. So I thought, let's get them into the fray. Probably a mistake. But I don't know. I wanted to keep the Wild Riders alive, I think.
Well, let's find out what happens as a result of this, because you also charge into the Dwarf Warriors and land on the wall. So the obstacle that you were defending, that you then retreated from, you decided, you know what? That wall's not so scary. Let's just charge through it. With your general as well.
So no rank bonus there because of the wall, but I thought, well, my general's getting involved, so that could, with the Spear of Kurnos, that could be decisive. Yeah, also give you something to think about with your Ironbreakers there, so dwarves are beset from all sides. And my shooting had been whittled down a lot, so it was no longer fish in a barrel, unfortunately. I had to give your Death Star unit something to think about there, and not an obvious target.
We've got a bit of a battle line brewing here, but you may have noticed that the cavalry unit on the hill have now run off somewhere to hide because they don't want to get killed. They're not confident in taking out the Iron Drakes in just shot for shot for the rest of the game. So they're hiding to preserve their points.
I mean, what I really wanted to do, Andy, with the Wild Riders was to swing them round the back, and if they could make the charge into your organ gun, take that out, and then maybe try and get the Iron Drakes as well. That would have been perfect poetry there.
Now, let's have a look what's going on here. Well,
oh dear.
Look at all that whomping that the hammerers do. They just whomp lots of these guys.
Yeah. I think we were attacking simultaneously at this point because the initiative was equal, but with the toughness 4 of the hammers, I believe, just didn't get any.
No, I think you just failed with all your attacks this turn because I wouldn't have been attacking simultaneously with the hammerers.
Yeah, I don't know if we did a challenge. I think we did a challenge, and I got killed in the challenge.
Yeah, I think you just failed with your attacks horribly.
Just it's so hard to wound dwarves when you've only got strength 3.
But because of the positioning of the units here now, the Iron Breakers are stuck. They're going to struggle to make it into combat with anyone next turn, sadly.
Yeah.
And moving on. So, we're into my turn, and what happens as a result of my shooting now?
I think my Wild Riders must have fluffed their attacks as well. Oh, yeah. Oh, you've shot some Way Watchers there, I can see.
Shot some Way Watchers to death, which is fun.
Yeah.
And the organ gun blasted away at your general. And ouch. I think it took 2 wounds off him, didn't it?
Yeah, took 2 wounds off him.
Yeah, so he was very close to death. But he lives. The hammerers are just splatting their way through this unit, and they're freed up space for the Iron Breakers to get involved in the game now. Yeah,
my general did survive because of that Dawnstone gives them +5 at ward. That saved my ass.
And this combat in the middle here rumbles on. Both these units are taking damage from each other, but they keep drawing the combat. They've both got a musician as well, so there's no tiebreaker.
Yeah, fantastic. You'd be surprised at how solid Eternal Guard can be, and these guys didn't even have shields, so really good against equalish warriors, even though they're outnumbered.
Yeah, so ignore this pile of corpses that we've got at the bottom of the...
I think my Glade Lord fluffed all of his attacks as well, and I was absolutely gutted about that, because I really wanted to see what he could do. Yeah.
We're on to your next turn now, and you've got the War Dancers into combat finally. They've gone into the flank of the Hammerers, and you put your cavalry into the Iron Breakers.
Yeah, just a crazy charge there. Yeah, I mean, who knows? No, they would definitely have been killed there. Who knows?
At this point, we were running out of time, and we decided we can pretty much see where most of this stuff is going, and I think we've done 4 turns each before your turn here.
4 turns each. Oh, but don't forget one final thing. Your dwarf Demon Slayer was shot off.
Oh yes, it was a stand and shoot, wasn't it? He tried to charge your Way Watchers.
Yeah.
And got shot down. So the normal shooting just bounced off his butt cheeks. But the stand and shoot, they thought, you know what, if we don't hit him now, he's going to just mince us to death. So they did manage to kill him that way. And this is where we ended it. So if we'd gone to the full 6 turns, what do we think would have happened? I think this would have continued to be a stalemate, this combat here, because these 2 units aren't particularly hard-hitting. I think the Iron Breakers shred through your cavalry and probably win this flank.
Yeah.
Your Way Watchers will probably run away to stay alive. So I think if it just went on forever, I think you would stay out of my range probably successfully, and maybe I could corner you in the edge of the table if we played for about 6 months. But if we played the natural number of turns, I think the way this middle's looking with my Death Star now getting involved, I think they would have turned the tables over here. But where the game rested, we ended it at the end of turn 4 before any of these charges happened. So we worked it out and determined that you had actually killed more stuff and taken more banners, so you were up on points at this stage.
Yeah, very pleased with that. Obviously, did want to see the game out, and I did want to see how my War Dance would perform. Do you think they would have killed that Hammerers unit? I think so, especially with the Shadow Dancer in the combat. I
I
mean,
think the
weapon skill
hammerers
8,
were
strength
on
4.
borrowed time. I think they would have gone. But I
Yeah,
think this Ironbreaker Death Star with Runesmith and the King would have taken out everything here with enough time.
yes, with enough time. Yeah. I think the only way I could have taken that unit out was with some serious shooting, and I just don't know, because you got your Dwarf King in there, Thane in there as well, so very, very hard to shift that unit unless you've got maybe some vortex spell that can just suck them all out into another universe.
Yeah, I think if you could have got a good 6 to wound roll and finished off the organ gun, that could have been important in this following turn as well. If you hadn't done,
Yeah,
then it's
that
got a
was
very high
huge.
chance of killing off your general.
Yeah, that was huge for me. I think in hindsight, I should have equipped my general with the Hail of Doom arrow or something that gives me multiple shots. I think there's a beautiful magic weapon available to the Wood Elves. Just look it up here. Not the Arrow of Kurnos, because you get that automatically. Here we go. Called the Bow of Lorraine, is it? Yeah, the Bow of Lorraine. What happens with that? It's you have number of shots equal to your attacks. I'd have 3 attacks at strength 4, bow skill 7. You know, so I think that might have been enough to take it out. But hindsight's a beautiful thing, isn't it?
Yes, so obviously we've got a taste for some of the mechanics now. We haven't had any serious kind of magic interaction going on yet because we only had a level 1 wizard in this game. Next time I'm sure you'll bring some more significant magic, and I might have an Anvil of Doom ready by then as well, which has its own magic to throw around.
I think one more thing yeah, absolutely. One more thing to consider was the hammerers. I think they're stubborn or something like that. So I would have had to kill them to a last man, which probably wouldn't have happened in just one man.
Well, you may think that, but stubborn is slightly different than it used to be. So I'll tell you how it's worded now. So, stubborn is that the first time this unit is required to make a break test, it may choose not to, and will automatically fall back in good order instead. So you only have one opportunity to use it when you take a break test, and after that, stubborn is not a thing anymore.
I see, but looking at this board, I wonder if I could have won that combat in the middle with the Eternal Guard against your Dwarf Warriors. Especially if I got my general back involved in the fray, would mean you couldn't shoot him with your organ gun. And yeah, maybe I could do something there. I think I could make them flee, because maybe you lose over half the unit. I don't know, it's hard to say.
It's tough to say because they are in range of the Dwarf General as well, so they're going to be using his leadership.
Yeah.
So I think that would have just continued to be a stalemate.
Yeah. Yeah, times like these where you think, well, could do with a big tree man coming in and just wading in with a tree whack.
Yes, or at times like these I think I could have done with a nice stone thrower to drop in the middle of your Eternal Guard earlier on.
Yeah, now, one thing after the game, Andy, was that I looked at your army. You said, what do you think I could have done better? I thought, well, first off, I don't think you needed such a massive Death Star unit. I think you could have afforded to take off 5 of those iron breakers, or even 10 of them, and they'd still be formidable, and use those points with giving yourself more iron drakes, maybe, because they were so effective. Yeah, and then for me, I don't know, I gave my Eternal Guard units veteran and drilled, and I don't know if they were really useful at all in this battle, so that there were some points wasted there.
They are certainly useful rules that a lot of things in the game can take, but they are situational.
Mm-hmm.
So one of them is to re-roll failed leadership tests, but I don't think you can put it on Rangers, who were the only unit that really failed to an obscene level.
Yeah. I did think about bringing Wildwood Rangers, but I don't think they would have been that effective, to be honest, against dwarves. They're better against sort of monsters, I guess. Didn't really get to see how good the War Dancers could be. I really did think there would be a target for your shooting, hence why I put them at the edge of the table. hoping for a flank charge, and would have loved to have seen how well they did in combat.
Well, having played the game now, I think one thing that's clear is that one thing you don't want to be doing in the old world is walking very slowly towards the enemy. You want to encourage them to come towards you, with shooting, for example, or you want to use faster or scouting units to get to them quicker. You don't want to be spending the whole game trudging slowly across the battlefield, especially into gunfire. So you want to set up your army so that's not a thing that happens.
Yeah, I mean, Andy, you might consider swapping out your Dwarf Warriors for Thunderers, because they're really the same as Warriors in combat.
It should also be pointed out, by the way, that this army was made up of the only units that I'd got ready for the old world yet. So I do have Thunderers on my painting table now.
Yeah.
So we've got Thunderers, Quarrelers, Warriors with great weapons, Anvil of Doom, loads of war machines to come as well.
Yeah. I think I was a bit nervous about using magic, to be honest, because there was so much to remember and learn to start with. But, next game, maybe I'll bring a wizard, and that could be, or maybe some bound spells,
Magic is definitely a game changer. Certain things you can do when you can put down vortexes and negatively affect the enemy in various ways, debuff them.
There's a bunch of units I didn't take that I could have, I got Tree Man, I've got Sisters of the Thorn, I've got loads more Glade Guard. Could have brought maybe a Waywatcher hero.
How did the game feel to you compared to 8th edition?
I've really enjoyed it. Maybe I don't know, maybe thought it was easier than 8th edition.
There are definitely elements that are more streamlined than 8th edition. There are certain things where it's a little bit more complicated, but it does give you more options and makes the battlefield a bit more dynamic. Mostly the stuff after combat.
I mean, I suppose everyone might experience this, but the game feels quite rushed at the end. The turns go really fast after turn 3, but turns 1 and 2, especially turn 1, is so long. That's what I've got to work on speeding up, just setting up, getting rolls quickly done, and not umming and ahhing as much as I do.
Well, I think in general, once you've played a game many, many times and you're familiar with all your units, you know what the plan is before you start the turn, so it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
I'd have to say, I do like my movement trays, because even the little black squares at the back, it's a good illustration of how many models have been killed.
Yeah, it's cool. That is cool. So I'm looking forward to getting my movement trays coming through. Got some round to square converted coming. So yeah, I've got a ton of options with my Wood Elves, and I'd love to play them again.
And now that we're basically old world experts, I'm sure that we're going to be doing another Andy and Rem show very soon, looking at all the new stuff, because some of us have been spending untold sums on the new Bretonians.
Yeah. True.
And they are currently waiting in my painting queue, though, while all the dwarves just get highlights added to them, because I painted most of them around about the year 2000, and then I added some more units in 2012. So all those need a little bit of work just to bring up to the modern painting standards. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. What are you working on?
Just working on rebasing stuff, getting movement trays. I've actually got a few more Glade Guard to paint up. Wood Elves are more or less done. Just getting the movement trays nice. This would have been the third time I've rebased this army. So annoying.
Well, I think you could, with good confidence, I think you could rebase this army permanently onto squares.
Yeah.
Because I think they've been kind of phased out of Age of Sigmar, haven't they, anyway, the Wood Elves?
Yeah, we went to... see, our game was kind of interrupted because we couldn't help but take a visit to Warhammer World in the afternoon. And, we looked through everything. Couldn't see any Wood Elf units that you can buy at the moment. Or High Elf.
Or dispossessed dwarves.
No, No, not at all.
Yeah, which suggests that they're just going to get nice new old world packaging and pop up on the shelves again over the next months.
Yeah. Yeah, Games Workshop have really got a lot of stuff to re-release, haven't they? As well as all the new stuff they're already putting out. So yeah, I don't know. Age of Sigmar feels a little bit more of a backseat to me at the minute. I don't know. I've still got massive love for Warhammer: The Old World, 8th edition. It's great to see rank and file back, and a more tactical approach to movement. Whereas in Age of Sigmar feels like movement's a lot more freer.
Yes, you're not limited, and it's kind of forgiving, the movement in Age of Sigmar. The exact positioning and facings of units aren't as important. It's obviously in a rank and flank style game, whichever way you're facing is very important. It determines whether you can actually participate in the game with that unit at all, whether you can charge something or whether the enemy's just dancing around you. And there are no things like double turns.
One thing I was thinking of swapping out, maybe not use arcane bodkins with them arrows next time, maybe use the Hagbane ones, which are poisoned arrows. So that would maybe auto wound you on 6s to hit.
That would be a big deal against dwarves, because that was the time you were struggling to achieve anything, was when you were rolling to wound on 5s or 6s generally.
But I think do you still get a saving throw?
I assume so, but I'm not 100% on that. I haven't looked at poison yet.
Here's one for you. What if I had Hagbane arrows against a war machine?
Interesting.
Because a war machine isn't a living thing, is it? So why would it be poisoned?
I don't know. You'd have to look into that.
But rules as written, it would be you'd wound it on a 6 to hit, which means you could take out war machines really easily, because I don't think they get an armor save, do they?
It might specify which units poison works against, possibly. Worth looking into anyway. So, I think it's about time to wrap this one up. One game in, 1.2 games, let's say, because we had a little mini just mechanics test first. Are you feeling good about the future of the old world and your participation in it? Do you think you're going to be diving in there face first, learning all the rules, becoming an expert over the next few years?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to try my dragon out as well, because I do have a forest dragon I can field. So I think a couple more games with an army that's 70-80% what I use today. I'd become faster, confident, and maybe even more confident enough to enter a tournament at the arena there in Nottingham.
And you've got your enthusiasm back on full power by the sounds of it as well for this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Good.
I have. Yeah, I should think so after over 10 years of painting. Yeah.
Yes, because we're both old school, old world fiends. We've been involved in Warhammer many, many editions ago. So it's exciting to be back in this world and to see GW, not only GW supporting it, but the people and the community hopefully surprising GW with the response to it and the demand. So hopefully, whatever plans they had for support, they're only going to increase with time, now that they've seen that the people are thirsting to get back into the old world.
Yeah. Well, look, if any of you guys watching now or watching after the stream like my paint jobs, the best place to go is Remington Warhammer on Instagram. And you can see lots of pictures of my models and arms if you liked what you saw today.
And also, don't forget to check out the various links in the description, including Discord server and Facebook groups and such. And obviously, if you want an endless stream of just non-stop tactical analysis for various game systems, why not give me all your money so that I can keep firing out videos at an obscene rate? Wouldn't that be nice? I think people could empty out their life savings for the good of this channel. That sounds fair, doesn't it? Right, Mr. Remington, would you like to say farewell to the audience?
farewell to the audience.
And all that remains to be said is... good night out there, whatever you are.